That evening, I took my daughter to the airport, figuring it was nothing more than her usual business outing. Things felt routine at first, but then my 7-year-old grandson seized my hand with a fierce grip. His gaze, filled with sheer alarm, stopped me cold. In a shaky murmur, he pleaded, "Grandma, keep us from returning home. This morning, I overheard Mom scheming something bad against us. Trust me, please." Right then, a piece of me shattered. I didn't probe for details. I just ignited the engine and sped off with him into the shadowy darkness. But hold on a second. If you're enjoying this, hit that subscribe button now and drop a comment below telling us where you're tuning in from. It's amazing to see our tales reach around the world. I'm R. Binham, 70 years young, and up until that fateful evening, I believed I understood my daughter Candace inside and out. I've been sharing a home with her and my grandson Devin since my son-in-law Reggie passed away 3 years back in a devastating car crash. That tragedy etched lasting wounds on everyone, hitting little Devin hardest. He's turned into a keenly perceptive and unusually subdued kid ever since. On that particular Thursday, we headed to Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport to drop Candace off for her work jaunt to Chicago. As a marketing executive at a major company, she jets off often. We got there ahead of schedule. The departure area was mostly deserted, and the frigid rush of the AC prompted me to pull my lightweight jacket tighter around myself. "It's just 3 days away, Mom," Candace said with a grin while fixing her overhead luggage. "Watch over Devin closely and remember his meds." Devin, right next to me, held onto his dinosaur-themed rucksack like a lifeline, his stare fixed intently on his mom. He's always been the quiet type, but that night, his hush felt deeper than ever. "We'll manage just fine, sweetheart," I added, attempting to draw him into the chat, yet he only gave a mute dip of his head. Candace knelt before her boy and brushed back the strands draping his forehead. "Stay well-behaved for Grandma." "Head out, Mom. See you shortly," she replied. She planted a kiss on his brow, and Devin stood rigid, like a tiny monument. My chest tightened as I observed my daughter. Through all the trials, she'd forged herself into a tough, self-reliant force. After her husband's death, she dove headfirst into her career with renewed vigor, maybe to outrun the grief. I respected her toughness, though I'd sensed a subtle emotional rift widening between us. "Time for me to board," she announced, glancing at her timepiece. "They start in 30 minutes. We exchanged a quick squeeze, stiff and lacking real affection, a pattern that's crept in recently. She pecked my cheek, snatched her bag, and strode off towards security. We followed her fading outline until the throng swallowed her up. "Time to head home, Devin. It's late," I suggested, clasping his small hand. We navigated the walkway back to the parking lot. Not a peep escaped him the entire trek. His quietude didn't faze me. That's simply how he is. Post-accident, he expresses himself more through glances and motions than speech. The garage loomed dim and sparse. Just a handful of dim orange bulbs threw eerie outlines across the pavement. Scant vehicles dotted the space this late. I hit the key fob, and our aging Chevy Impala's headlights flashed in response. I tugged Devin along softly toward it. That's the moment it struck. A sharp, urgent yank. He'd halted abruptly, clamping my arm with surprising strength, his tiny nails digging into my aged flesh. Puzzled, I spun back. "What's wrong, honey?" I inquired, crouching to meet his gaze. Under the faint glow from the light post, Devin's complexion drained of color. Those ever-alert eyes of his now bulged with unfiltered dread. I'd never witnessed such raw fear etched on his young features. A shiver coursed through me. "Grandma," he breathed, barely audible, forcing me to tilt nearer. "Keep us from going home. Trust what I'm saying." I paused, bewildered, assuming perhaps he dreaded the vacant house sans his mom. "No need to fret, darling. It'll be okay. Just you and me for a bit." But he shook his head emphatically, his hold tightening further. "No, Grandma, stay away from the house," he insisted, voice fracturing. "Today I caught Mom on the line in her study. She was discussing us." My pulse raced. "What exactly did you catch, Devin?" He gulped, his mouth quivering faintly. He pressed even closer to my ear. "Mom mentioned that once we're asleep, it's all set," she instructed. "Ensure no slip-ups. The gas leak must appear accidental." Ice gripped my bloodstream. I froze, locked on those pure eyes now burdened with a horrifying truth. "Please, Grandma." His words trembled like a fragile whisper. "Have faith in me now." That plea struck like a blow. Flashes hit me of prior warnings from Devin, like when he'd spotted his mom stashing documents in the den, or when he'd brought up she'd been tinkering with the kitchen plumbing the entire night. I'd dismissed those tales as mere bids for notice from a kid. My fingers began to tremble. I refused to accept it. It couldn't be that Candace, my very own girl, was scheming to end our lives. Yet the fear etched in Devin's expression was utterly convincing. "All right, kiddo," I murmured, gently caressing his ashen face. "I trust you. We won't head back tonight." Relief washed over his features instantly, erasing any remnants of skepticism I clung to. He understood. This 7-year-old boy had somehow exposed a nightmarish scheme. I rose on unsteady feet. Thoughts swirled in my head. If Devin's words held truth, a simple hotel stay or crashing at a buddy's wouldn't cut it. Candace might track the card charges. She could reach out to our whole circle. I climbed into the vehicle with Devin, secured his belt, and gripped the steering wheel. My grip faltered so much I struggled to slot the key. "Where to, Nana?" Devin inquired, his tiny voice piercing the heavy quiet. No clue crossed my mind. I peered into the mirror at his anxious expression and forced reassurance. "To a secure spot, honey. Give me a moment to figure it out." The motor hummed to life, and I eased out of the space. Time was essential. A strategy was crucial. Most importantly, we had to uncover the reason my daughter wished us harm. I wandered the roads for nearly 60 minutes without a set path, simply distancing ourselves from the residence. Devin dozed off in the rear, drained by the ordeal's weight. I stole glances at him via the reflection, his features now peaceful against the panic from the garage. How could such a young soul carry this burdensome truth? Navigating the emptying urban avenues, my brain churned wildly, piecing together clues. Candace had shifted lately, no question, more withdrawn, quicker to snap, often secluded in the study, whispering on the phone. I'd chalked it up to mourning, job strain, and solo parenting woes, but revisiting each odd glance, each cut-off chat when I entered, a dark design emerged. I pulled into a round-the-clock fuel stop on the city's edge. Strategy demanded focus. I grabbed a thin coffee from the shop and slid back inside, eyeing the still sleeping Devin. Then my mobile buzzed in my jacket. Candace's contact glowed. My pulse surged. Her plane was due airborne long before. What prompted this ring? Fingers quivering, I picked up. "Hi." "Mom," Candace replied with eerie composure. "Your whereabouts? You were supposed to arrive an hour back." Chills raced along my spine. How'd she sense our absence? "We paused for a meal," I fibbed, aiming for calm. Devin needed food. Quiet lingered. "Got it, dining spot." "That spot by the mall," I hedged. "Aren't you airborne?" "Flight snag," she shot back fast, pushed to dawn, en route homeward. I stiffened. Illogical. Candace obsessed over itineraries. She'd never tolerate such a curveball. "Bummer," I managed casually. "Catch you there soon." "Sure thing," she cooed, tone syrupy now. "No hurry, savor the food, just checking in." I ended the call, fixating on the device. A snare. She probed our awareness. Perhaps surveillance dotted the place, or she caught that Devin eavesdropped earlier. Devin shifted behind, eyelids fluttering open. "Mom," he queried, insight chilling me. I dipped my head, unable to mask from those sharp eyes. "Claims the trip's off. Returning." Horror flared in his stare. "She suspects Nana. Knows we've caught on." I inhaled sharply, steadying my quivers. "Devin, recount this morning precisely. All of it. No omissions." He straightened, ironing his rumpled shirt. He seemed far beyond 7 as he started. Mom rose at dawn, steps in the hall. I figured breakfast prep, but she slipped into the office, latched it. He faltered, gaze dropping. Shouldn't have, yet I crept close, ear to the panel. Fine, love, continue. Mumbled soft, but I caught bits. Yeah, solo. 3 days to mimic mishap. Nighttime gas escape as they rest. No one's wise. Devin halted, drawing air, then mentioned documents and policy, finances. She muttered, "With them gone, I'll finally get my hands on it all." A chill coursed through me. Policy documents. In an instant, the pieces fell into place. Half a year earlier, my deceased spouse Reggie had set aside paperwork for a hefty life insurance payout. Candace was aware that I stood as the main recipient, with provisions directing a sizable share to Devin, accessible solely on his 21st birthday. As the account overseer, Candace managed the funds but held no access to them, not as long as I drew breath. Then there was the residence, the one Reggie and I owned jointly, now fully under my control following his passing. Candace shared our home, yet the deed remained mine, a property whose value climbed steadily amid the area's expansion. "Devin," I inquired, my tone quivering, "had you caught your mom mentioning cash or Grandpa's policy in the past?" He gave a hesitant nod, on numerous occasions. She tends to flare up whenever the topic arises. One time, over a call, she complained about being trapped on our account. Each phrase stabbed like a dagger into my chest, my flesh and blood scheming to end us for profit. The notion felt so outrageous, so horrific, that my thoughts rebelled against it. Yet the clues mounted unmistakably. Her shifted demeanor, the abrupt focus on monetary issues, the relentless probes into my estate plans, the out-of-the-blue work excursions, and this phony scrap journey now. She aimed to lower our defenses. She sought to guarantee we'd be inside, asleep during the mishap. "What's our next move, Gran?" Devin wondered, his young tones snapping me to the present. I gazed at this remarkable boy who'd detected the peril ahead of me, who'd preserved our safety through his alertness and bravery. "For starters, we'll put more distance between us," I answered, firing up the ignition once more. "After that, we'll gather solid proof." "Proof?" Devin echoed, puzzled. "Absolutely, dear. Concrete evidence revealing your mom's sinister intentions. Something solid enough for the authorities." Devin dipped his head solemnly. This wasn't the sort of discussion a grandma ought to share with her grandchild. It wasn't a burden for a kid to shoulder. Yet here we were, united in it. Just the pair of us versus a foe I'd never suspected. As I navigated the darkness, a scheme took shape in my head. A daring strategy, yet potentially the key to the validation we required. "Devin," I called, glancing at him via the mirror. "Recall Mr. Harrison, the lobby attendant from our former complex," he affirmed. Wallace Harrison was a longtime ally, a trustworthy and reserved fellow who'd served for years in that structure before we relocated to the house. "I believe it's time we dropped by," I declared, veering toward the familiar district. It was a bold wager, but in that instant choices were scarce. We required a secure spot to rest till dawn, and crucially, support in unmasking Candace prior to another attempt. The dashboard clock showed 1:20 a.m. upon our arrival at the vintage edifice. My pulse raced as I pulled over on a side road, clear of the surveillance lenses. Should Candace indeed be hunting us, we must avoid any traces. "Hang tight here briefly, Devin," I instructed, killing the motor. "I'll just verify if Mr. Harrison's handling the graveyard shift." I slipped from the vehicle and hurried to the guard post, hugging the dim areas. The station glowed inside, and fortunately, Wallace Harrison sat there, his lined features hunched over a puzzle periodical. I rapped softly on the pane, and he glanced up, first bewildered, then astonished to spot me. "Mara," he rose, swinging open the entry, "what brings you out at this late hour?" "Wallace, pardon the unannounced arrival," I whispered, scanning the surroundings warily, "but I'm facing a grave issue. I require your assistance." The modest employee quarters behind the structure offered basic comfort. Wallace had resided there since losing his spouse a decade back. It formed a secluded nook with its own access, hidden from those unfamiliar with the layout, ideal as our short-term refuge. Devon perched by the dining area, nursing warm cocoa. Wallace had prepared. The veteran guard observed us anxiously, absorbing the astonishing tale I'd relayed moments before. "Mara," Wallace uttered at last, his somber timbre piercing the quiet. "Are you certain? This is a weighty charge against your daughter." I exhaled deeply. "I realize, Wallace, it comes across as lunacy. I resist it, too." I turned to Devon, who stared down at his mug, but the words he overheard can't be dismissed, alongside the indicators I'm piecing together now. Wallace inclined his head thoughtfully, stroking his weathered jaw. He'd been acquainted with our kin for years. He'd witnessed Candace's youth. He'd mourned at my husband's service. "What's your strategy, Ms. Alla?" he queried. "We need confirmation," I stated, my thoughts still working on the strategy that had begun taking shape during the drive. "If we head to the authorities right now, armed only with a child's account from a 7-year-old and my own doubts, they won't give us the time of day. Candace holds a lot of esteem. Her professional life is rock solid. They'd brush it off as a mix-up or even claim I'm starting to lose my grip." Wallace knit his brows, yet he didn't argue. Deep down, he understood I had a point. "So where exactly do I come into play here?" he inquired. "I have to return to the home," I stated, sensing Devon stiffen next to me. Not to linger, but to hunt for proof. I must uncover precisely what Candace intended, and Devon needs to remain secure here as I handle that. "No way, Grandma," Devon burst out, setting the cup firmly on the surface with a clunk. "That's too hazardous. Mom could show up." I clasped his chilly small fingers in my own. "I get it, honey, but I'll proceed with caution. I'm only planning a swift check in her workspace to spot any hints. I'll slip inside and out before she even notices." Devon shook his head vigorously, his eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "I don't want you leaving. I don't want to be left by myself." "You won't be by yourself," I soothed him. "Mr. Harrison will keep you company, and I swear I'll return shortly. You can't head out solo." Wallace stepped in, his concern plain on his features. "If what you're describing holds up, the danger's too great." "I have no alternative," I countered. "Should Candace learn we have an inkling, she could wipe out any traces, or worse, resort to bolder actions." A chill ran through me at those thoughts. I have to move fast while she assumes we're clueless. Wallace let out a heavy breath, combing his fingers through his silver locks. "Fine, but at minimum, allow me to chauffeur you over. I'll park at the curb and keep watch. If you're not out in 20 minutes, I'll alert the cops." I agreed with a nod. It beat venturing entirely on my own. "I want to tag along too," Devon pressed. "Absolutely not, honey," I declared resolutely. "The risk is too high for you. I require you tucked away here out of harm's way. I vow I'll come back." Following some back and forth, Devon relented at last, though he squeezed me in an embrace so tight it stole my air. "Swear you'll stay safe, Grandma," he murmured close to my ear. "Swear it to me." "I swear," I answered, pressing a kiss to his brow. Wallace provided an outdated prepaid cell, the unregistered variety, enabling us to stay in touch without risking my device, which Candace could potentially monitor. We settled on signals. A single ring followed by disconnect signaled all clear. Double rings indicated problems. Once Devon was settled cozily on the compact couch in the flat, with firm orders to secure the entrance and admit no one except us, Wallace and I departed, our spirits weighed down by the task ahead. The car's display showed 1:20 a.m. as we halted a short distance from the residence. The roads lay utterly empty, save for scattered streetlights throwing elongated shades across the pavement. "This doesn't sit right with me, Miss Yara," Wallace whispered. "Killing the motor. Are you certain about proceeding?" I gulped, eyeing the shadowy outline of the place at the street's far end. Every window loomed black. Candace's vehicle was nowhere in sight out front. No options left, I echoed, more for my own reassurance than his. Stick to 20 minutes per our deal. If I fail to emerge or signal, summon the police. Wallace dipped his head solemnly. May God watch over you. I stepped from the vehicle and hurried along the walkway, hugging the darker spots. My pulse hammered fiercely. I figured it was audible from a distance. The dwelling stood hushed as I slipped my key into the rear entrance. I eased it shut after me and paused motionless in the pitch-black cooking area, straining to catch any sounds. Silence reigned, broken only by the fridge's faint drone and the far-off chime of the parlor timepiece. I retrieved the compact torch I'd packed and lit the route toward the corridor. My goal was Candace's workspace upstairs, all without a single noise. Each plank that groaned beneath my weight echoed like a roar in the quiet space. At the base of the staircase, I halted abruptly. An odd odor lingered in the atmosphere, cloyingly sweet yet laced with chemicals. I inhaled deeply, attempting to pinpoint it. Not fuel. Something else, out of place entirely. Ascending felt endless. Every footfall measured to dodge the usual squeakers. In the upper landing's passage, I paused before her door. Locked, just as anticipated. From my pocket came the bobby pin I'd readied. Long before, during Candace's adolescent fits when she'd barricade her space, I'd mastered unlocking basics like this. I'd never imagined employing it under these dire straits. After several fraught moments, the latch gave its welcome snap. I nudged the panel inward gradually, hoping the fittings stayed mute. Her room gleamed with perfect order, true to form. Racks of volumes on business and promotion, a mahogany table bearing a shut computer, a pivoting seat in hide, everything in its spot. I latched the entry after myself and launched my inspection. The laptop required a password, so I turned my attention to the paper files instead. I methodically pulled out drawers, sifted through files, and inspected every nook for signs of trouble. It was the third drawer down where I discovered it, a crimson file that stood out from the rest, tucked beneath a stack of business papers. Within lay unfamiliar bank records, accounts under strange names, hefty transfers to an entity called M. Sellers, and worst of all, a duplicate of my life insurance policy marked with scribbled annotations on the edges regarding amounts and beneficiary terms. My pulse raced wildly. This was no fantasy. All that Devin had picked up on was true. My daughter was scheming against me. A sound from below shattered my focus, the clear click of the front door unlocking. I went rigid. Ice coursed through my bloodstream. Candace had returned. In a flash, I snatched my phone and punched in Wallace's contact. After 2 rings, I ended the call. Our code for danger. Right away, I snapped photos of the most damning papers using the device's camera. No chance to pore over details, but proof was essential. I returned the file to its exact spot and concealed myself behind the office door, flicking off the light. Footfalls echoed up the staircase now, measured and wary. They lacked Candace's brisk, purposeful stride. This was more guarded. My adrenaline spiked. I was pinned. Venturing out meant getting spotted. Lingering here guaranteed discovery when Candace started her workday tomorrow, or sooner if she stepped inside tonight. The steps halted in the corridor. Breathing filtered through from beyond the door. A shadow shifted along the gap at the bottom, eclipsing the dim hall glow. Someone lurked outside, poised like they were straining to hear. I stifled my air, sweat chilling my spine. The doorknob twisted gradually. The panel edged open with a faint creak. I remained still, flattened to the wall in the door's shadow, scarcely inhaling. Shadow was my sole protector. A figure loomed across the office rug. Not Candace's build. The stature was greater, broader, and loftier. A male presence. The outline lingered motionless for seconds, as though its owner was attuned to every whisper. Then Candace's voice drifted up from below, softened by space. Marcus, all good upstairs. My heartbeat faltered. Marcus, the identical name from those financial docs. M. Sellers. "Just looking around," came a low, resonant male tone, mere steps from my hiding place. "Place is deserted, no trace of anyone." I knew something felt off, Candace shot back, her tone edging toward frustration. Nearer now. "They ought to be around. Schedule was set for tomorrow evening, post-trip." Candace's footfalls ascended. I was boxed in by conspirators intent on my demise. Escape lay through the office pane, leading to a slim outcrop above the rear yard. A perilous drop for most, fatal for someone my age at 70. "Told you bringing the boy into it was dicey," the man's voice pressed on, receding from the entrance into the passage. "Children don't follow patterns. He could have caught wind of it." "No way," Candace countered, now in the hall. "Devin sleeps till 7, and I always confer in the office with it shut. Plus, who'd credit a 7-year-old's word?" A heavy bump resounded from the lower level, chased by a stifled swear. "What the hell?" Candace demanded, voice sharp with alarm. "Not sure," Marcus answered. "I'll investigate. You prep her space." The fellow's steps hurried downward. Candace lingered in the corridor moments longer. Then her gait veered toward my bedroom at the far end. Thoughts whirled in my head. Her space. Preparing my quarters. What scheme were they hatching? And that disturbance below. Wallace had to have entered after my alert. My longtime ally, rushing to my aid, was now imperiled too. I eased from my nook behind the door, creeping silently. Peering through the slight opening, I saw the hall clear. On my toes, I edged toward the window. I had to flee and summon authorities. My safety hung in the balance, as did Wallace's, and above all, Devin's. With utmost caution, I unlatched the sash, muting any hint of noise. The protrusion was slimmer than anticipated, barely a foot across, 20 feet straight down to the lawn behind. In saner moments, I dismissed this path outright. Yet urgency fueled the impossible. I swung one foot over the sill, chilled by the dawn breeze. Summoning every ounce of resolve, I maneuvered the second leg out, teetering unsteadily on the brink. My aches flared. 70 years brought rheumatism that bit hard, but terror lent me a nimbleness long forgotten. Abruptly, raised voices erupted from downstairs, a muffled impact, then a pained grunt. Dread gripped me as I placed Wallace's timbre. They'd nabbed him. "Who else is with you, you old fool?" Marcus's gruff tone reverberated across the rooms. "How'd you figure out to slip in this way?" I didn't catch Wallace's reply, but a loud crash of something hefty toppling over sent a chill through me. I shut my eyes briefly, whispering an apology to my longtime buddy in my mind. There was nothing I could do for him anymore. My only shot was to slip away and fetch assistance. I edged along the narrow outcrop, bit by bit, spine flush against the siding, nails digging into the coarse surface. Perspiration trickled over my skin, even in the chilly darkness. At the building's edge stood a trellis draped in climbing vines. If only I could get to it, perhaps I could scale it to drop into the yard below. Dangerous, sure, but safer than leaping outright. "Candace, I've got a visitor," Marcus bellowed from within. Some elderly fellow attempting to creep through the rear entrance. "What? Who's that?" My girl's words drifted faintly from my bedroom. "He won't say a word, but he acts like he knows your mom. She's got to be close by." I halted on the sill, body rigid. They'd realized I was inside. The hunt would ramp up. No room left for hesitation. Adrenaline surged as I stretched to the trellis and started descending, blocking out the ache in my limbs and the gashes from the splintered slats. I half slid, half groped my way down the final stretch, hitting the turf with an awkward thump that shot agony into my left side. No moment to dwell on it. I lurched upright and dashed as softly as possible over the rear lawn toward the short fence separating our lot from the Miller's place next door. Weaving through the gloom of the branches, I caught the office pane being flung open with force. A light ray scanned the grounds, nearly spotting me. I crouched low behind some shrubs, breath held tight. Anybody out there? Marcus's call thundered into the blackness. "I'll take a look. Secure that geezer for now." I clambered over the barrier clumsily, tumbling into the neighbor's patch. The senior couple next door, thank goodness, slept like logs and were out of town. I hurried over their grass, hugging the walls, each stride stabbing sharply in my hip. By the time I hit the side road, my lungs burned. Terror drove me onward, though. I pushed farther from home, sticking to the dim spots until I emerged onto a busier thoroughfare, lined with a handful of late-night spots and folks milling on the pavement. I fumbled for the disposable cell and punched in 911, fingers shaking. While the line rang, I scanned the snaps I'd captured of the papers in the study. The evidence we required was right there. "Police? What's your emergency?" The dispatcher's steady voice came through. "This is Aller Binham," I replied, fighting to steady my quaver. "I must report an assault with intent to kill. My daughter aims to murder me and my grandson for the life insurance payout. She's got a partner, and they've just nabbed a pal of mine who came to my aid." Silence hung briefly on the line. I pictured the doubt in the operator's head, probably pegging me as one more delusional senior spinning wild tales. "Ma'am, can you tell me your current location?" the voice inquired, polite yet guarded. "I'm along the I-85 frontage road by the 500 block, fleeing my residence. Hurry, send units to 237 Magnolia Lane. My buddy Wallace Harrison's life is at stake. Any evidence to back these claims? I've got pics of the files and a witness, my 7-year-old grandson who overheard my daughter scheming it all." I paused, then pressed on. "I realize it seems outlandish, but it's real. Please, we can't waste a second." Mid-conversation, a squad car cruised by at a crawl on the street. I flagged it wildly, phone still pressed to my cheek. Relief washed over me as it pulled up. 2 cops stepped out, faces wary as they neared. "Officers are here," I informed the dispatcher. "I'll brief them now." The following moments blurred together. I hurriedly laid out the details for the pair, pulling up the document images on my device. I brought up Devin, tucked away safely at Wallace's place, and Wallace's peril, likely hurt and restrained back home. My desperation, or maybe the proof on display, swayed them. One keyed his mic for reinforcements, the other guided me into their cruiser. "We'll extract your companion first," the veteran cop assured me, his features etched with long shifts. "After that, we'll track down your grandson. Got the precise spot for him." I recited the rundown building's address and directions to the workers' unit. My fresh concern was Candace and her sidekick piecing together my getaway. They might guess at Devin's hideout. Would she recall Wallace and our shared history? The cruiser tore along the empty pre-dawn roads. A couple more units trailed behind, mutes on the whales but strobes cutting the dark. My pulse hammered on as we neared my home. Tension gripped the air. I pointed out the rear entrance to the cop, the kitchen door. Wallace had to be down in the basement. We pulled up at a cautious spot. The officers told me to stay put in their cruiser while they fanned out around the place. From my seat, I observed anxiously as they took positions, exchanging updates over their walkie-talkies. Time dragged on forever, even if it was just a handful of minutes. Suddenly, action erupted in a flash. Shouts from the police rang out. "Freeze!" Then came the shatter of glass. A door banged shut hard, more yells echoed, followed by a thud and abrupt quiet. Soon after, I spotted Wallace emerging, supported by a pair of officers. My longtime buddy was hobbling along with a clear gash above his eye, yet he was breathing. Relief washed over me so powerfully that sobs came unbidden. Right then, Marcus appeared next, wrists bound in cuffs, guided by 2 more cops. He cut an imposing figure, arms inked with tattoos and his face twisted in rage. I held my breath for Candace, but she never showed. The senior officer came over to the vehicle where I sat. "The place is secure, miss, but your girl's not inside. Looks like she bolted through the rear when she sensed us coming." A shiver coursed through me. "Devin," I breathed softly, "we've got to reach my grandson first." The cruiser tore through the darkness, lights flashing and siren wailing. Now in the rear, I fidgeted with my fingers. nerves frayed. Next to me, Wallace. His brow wrapped in a quick patch looked just as uneasy. "She had no clue about our spot," he murmured, aiming to soothe. I never spilled about the flat during my arrest, but reassurance eluded me. Dread built like a shadow in my gut. Candace was clever. She recalled my past circle, my routines. Spotting Wallace's name might lead her straight there. Pulling up to the rundown structure, my pulse nearly halted. The side access to the workers' unit hung slightly open. "Remain here," the cop commanded, pulling his sidearm. But staying back was impossible. I leaped from the car and dashed behind him, brushing off the warnings. Wallace trailed, favoring his bad leg. The corridor loomed dim and still. The unit's door stood shut, seemingly undisturbed. The officer rapped firmly 3 times. "Devin!" I cried out, voice quivering. "Devin, honey, it's Nana. You in there?" Nothing. An emptiness that stabbed like pins into my hearing. He tested the knob, locked. He drew back slightly, then rammed with his shoulder, splintering the frame in a boom. Inside, shadows ruled. The cop went in ahead, flicking on his beam with Wallace and I close behind. He scanned the cramped area with the light. The kitchen sat vacant. The lounge, complete with its pull-out couch, lay in disarray. "Devin!" I called once more, terror climbing my windpipe. That's when my eyes caught it on the couch, a scrap of ripped paper wedged beneath an overturned mug. With shaky fingers, I snatched it up and scanned the scrawled note. "Mom located me. Claims she's shielding me from you, says you're unhinged and spinning tales. I'm frightened, Nana. Please help." My legs buckled. Wallace caught me just shy of the ground. "She snatched him," I muttered, dazed. "Candace has Devin." The cop radioed at once, alerting on the child's abduction. In moments, a full response kicked off. Details on Candace, her vehicle, and the boy went out. Barriers at urban gateways, warnings along interstates, and at the airfield. Yet deep down, I doubted it'd be simple. Candace planned with precision. Months of scheming likely meant backup paths, forged papers, and insight into Devin's mind like no other. She could coax him along, at least for now, with the right words. They brought Wallace and me to the station, where we laid out every detail. I displayed the document snapshots, relayed what Devin had overheard, and detailed the policy payout alongside Candace's escalating avarice. The detective, a weary guy in his 40s with heavy shadows beneath his gaze, absorbed it all without interruption. Against my worries, he didn't dismiss me as a muddled senior. The proof held weight, boosted by the partner's account. Marcus had started backing my claims. "He's bargaining for leniency," the detective noted. "Admitted your daughter paid him to stage a fumes escape that'd end you and the kid while asleep. Reward, a cut of the policy cash." Nausea hit upon hearing the plot verified. "And Devin," I pressed, tone cracking. "Any traces?" He paused. "Nothing immediate, but we're watching every outbound path. She won't slip away easy." Still, conviction escaped me. Time crawled by, each tick amplifying my torment. In the station's lounge, nursing a cold tea I ignored, I sensed years piling on swift. Wallace sat nearby, wordless, now and then shifting, squeezing my hand in a show of support, his expression mixed concern with resolve. "We'll track him down, Miss Sarah," he murmured after a prolonged quiet. "Devin's a clever boy. He'll manage to drop hints for us." I managed a nod, grasping at that sliver of optimism. Devin really was remarkable. His sharp insight and quick mind had pulled us through danger before. Maybe they could do it again for him. That's when a detail I'd missed hit me. Something Devin had brought up a few days earlier. It involved Candace and a hidden spot. "Hold on," I blurted, straightening up in my seat. "I believe I've got an idea where she might have stashed Devin." Wallace and the officer strolling past the door turned toward me with anticipation. Just 2 weeks back, Devin had talked about Candace bringing him to this mystery property, a rural spot a couple hours outside the city. He lit up describing the animals and the pond. Back then, I'd figured it for a simple outing. The sergeant was summoned right away. I shared my theory. Candace could be fixing up that site as a bolt hole, a getaway after staging the crash meant to wipe us out. "Do you have the exact spot?" the sergeant inquired. "Not precisely. Devin said it was close to some little village. Sounded like Willow Creek or Cedar Ridge, along those lines. It wasn't a ton to go on, but it pointed somewhere. The team started digging into recent land buys or leases in hamlets like that, within a 3-hour drive from town. In the midst of it, fresh bad news came my way. Candace's vehicle turned up ditched at a roadside fuel stop on the westward interstate. She'd likely swapped rides. The hunt was turning thornier. The station clock showed 5:30 a.m. Dawn was barely breaking outdoors. I hadn't caught a wink in nearly a full day, yet the rush of nerves and dread kept me sharp. Then my cell, handed back once the lab cleared those images, buzzed in my pocket. Unknown caller. I picked up, pulse racing. "Hi, Grandma." Devin's tiny frightened tone sent a jolt through me. "Devin, honey, where are you? You all right?" "I'm fine," he breathed softly. "Mom's dozing off. I grabbed her phone and tucked it away to reach you." "You're incredibly courageous, darling," I replied, struggling to sound steady while waving urgently at the sergeant, who waved in a tech to pinpoint the signal. "Tell me your location." "We're at a countryside home. There's a pond and tons of woods around. We drove here, but it took forever, and I dozed during part of it. By the time I stirred, we'd arrived. Spot any markers, road signs or labels close by?" "I can't peek outside just yet." She could stir. His words shook. "She's acting strange, Grandma. She keeps saying odd stuff. Claims you mean to harm us." "Ignore that, love. I'm pulling out all stops to reach you." A pause hung, broken by rustling noises. When Devin returned, his whisper was fainter. "The driveway has a postbox. It reads Riverwood Ranch, off Highway 142. My chest thumped wildly. That was our breakthrough. "Devin, you're a wonder," I murmured. "Pay attention now. Seek cover somewhere secure. Cops are heading your way, though it might be a bit. Keep clear of your mom." "Got it. Got it. There's a weathered shed out back. I'll slip in there." "Good job, sweetie." "And Devin," I faltered, lump rising in my throat. "I adore you beyond words. It'll all turn out fine." "Love you more, Grandma," he murmured, then barely audible. "She's stirring. Gotta go." The line went dead. I sprang up, briefing the sergeant on the details. In moments, a plan snapped into place. The Western State Road featured various farms and lots near Highway 142, but Riverwood Ranch stood out as straightforward to find. "You need to remain behind," the sergeant instructed while the team geared up. "We'll retrieve your grandson and take your daughter into custody." But sitting idle wasn't an option. Devin faced the horror solo, realizing his mom could actually threaten him and me. He deserved a trusted presence at his rescue. "I'm going along," I stated firmly. No room for debate. "I'll stay back in the cruiser, out of harm's way, but I have to be close for Devin." After pushback, the sergeant relented, insisting I keep well clear until things stabilized. Wallace, nursing his wounds, wouldn't be deterred from joining. "I swore to the kid I'd shield him," he put it plainly. And so, as the earliest rays pierced the sky, we rolled out west in a convoy of squad cars. The dawn sun crested, streaking the heavens in rosy and amber tones that clashed sharply with the shadow weighing on my soul. On the drive, my mind raced over what had pushed Candace this far. My dear daughter, the one I'd held close, witnessed her toddle and utter her initial sounds. How had she become someone who could plot so mercilessly, scheming to end the lives of her very own mother and child? Greed over the inheritance played a role, no doubt. Yet there was more to it, a chilling detachment I'd observed unfolding across the years. It might have started following the passing of my daughter's husband, or maybe the warning signs appeared long before, and I, clouded by a parent's unwavering affection, chose to ignore them. These harsh thoughts shadowed me the entire drive, as the cityscape slowly faded into open countryside and modest farmsteads. Upon arriving at Highway 142, anxiety gripped my chest tightly. A subtle marker signaled the turnoff to Riverwood Ranch, leading onto a gravel path that twisted amid the foliage before vanishing around a curve. The authorities halted their vehicles short of the gate to prevent tipping off Candace. From that point, the team advanced on foot, encircling the grounds stealthily. "Stay put, Miss Alara," the sergeant instructed with a steady yet compassionate voice. "We'll ensure your grandson returns unharmed." I gave a reluctant nod. Wallace clasped my hand while we observed the squad slip forward in organized lines, vanishing into the woodland. The ensuing moment stretched into an eternity, the most agonizing I'd ever endured. Perched inside the cruiser, I peered through the glass, desperate for any glimpse past the branches. The radio buzzed now and then with cryptic exchanges beyond my comprehension. Suddenly, a far-off yell pierced the quiet, followed by frantic calls and the sharp crack of a firearm. That lone discharge reverberated across the serene dawn like a storm's roar, freezing my pulse briefly. Instinct took over. I flung open the car door and bolted along the unpaved track, tuning out Wallace's urgent cries trailing me. "Miss Alara, hold on." But restraint was impossible. Devin was inside, my precious grandson, my beacon, the sole soul who held true significance. I dashed with a vigor forgotten since my youth, disregarding the ache in my battered hip and the labored heaves of my lungs. The years melted away, fueled by terror's surge. Wallace hobbled after, struggling to close the gap. As the path curved, the dwelling came into view, a modest two-level home fronted by a timber veranda. Roughly 100 yards to the rear stood the weathered outbuilding, just as Devin had detailed. Law enforcement had taken up positions encircling the site, firearms at the ready. Stirring occurred on the veranda. I narrowed my eyes for clarity, and a chill surged through me upon spotting Candace. Her complexion ashen, hair unkempt, features twisted into something unrecognizable by rage. In her grasp, an object flashed in the dawn light, a pistol. With her other limb, she clutched Devin before her, using him as a barrier of flesh. "Stay back, all of you," she bellowed, her cry slicing the atmosphere with piercing shrillness. "I'll fire, I mean it." The sergeant had stationed himself mere paces from the steps, shielded somewhat by a sturdy oak. "Miss Candace, set down the firearm and release the child," he urged evenly, his demeanor resolute yet soothing. "You're completely boxed in. The place is ringed." "You have no idea," she wailed, her tone fracturing. "She robbed me of it all. Dad intended that fortune for me, not her. She blocked me from every scent, forever meddling, forever commanding my every move." I froze in place, concealed behind a cruiser parked ahead. Her accusations struck like daggers. So this was her view of me, a domineering figure withholding her due. Devin appeared ashen, gaze filled with dread, yet oddly composed. He surveyed the perimeter, seemingly searching for a way out. Amid the dire peril, my grandson clung to the sharp awareness that defined him. "Your dad willed the funds to the entire family," the sergeant countered, aiming to prolong the standoff. "We can sort this peacefully, no injuries." Lies. Candace's hold on Devin constricted. She twisted the testament. She twists it all, and now she's painting me as deranged, fabricating tales of me plotting her demise. Wallace caught up at last, breathless, seizing my elbow to halt my progress. "Keep low," he murmured. "Let the experts handle it." Yet immobility eluded me. Each ticking instant heightened the peril. Candace teetered on the edge, stare manic and unfocused, fingers quivering on the weapon. That's when I caught Devin fixating on the structure at the home's back. His glance flickered urgently, as though signaling me silently. I traced his focus and spotted an operative creeping noiselessly along the outbuilding's flank, preparing to approach from the rear. The pieces clicked. Devin was deliberately drawing her attention forward, aiding the authorities' repositioning. In that harrowing ordeal, my 7-year-old grandson displayed a bravery and wit that stunned me into silence. "Candace," I summoned, edging ahead despite Wallace's frantic tug. She whipped around, leveling the barrel my way. Her gaze widened in shock as she spotted me. "You!" she spat out. "How did you get away? You were supposed to perish in the blaze." "No blaze ever happened, Candace," I answered evenly, edging forward another pace. The officers stiffened but held back, sensing I was stalling to gain time. "Your scheme fell apart since Devon caught wind of it all. He preserved our lives." Candace's features contorted with fury and incredulity. She turned to Devon, who met her stare steadily without flinching. "You," she murmured to her boy. "You turned against me." "He didn't turn on anybody," I interjected, inching closer at a deliberate pace. "He merely shielded the one he cares for, much like I strove to shield you throughout." "Shield," she let out a harsh, nearly manic chuckle. "You smothered me, dictating every aspect of my existence, my finances, my aspirations. After Dad passed, that fortune ought to have been mine." "The fortune wasn't the issue, Candace," I responded, holding my tone firm even as my pulse hammered. "Your father intended for you to stand on your own achievements, not lean on a legacy. He cherished you. I cherish you." "Lies," she shrieked, her grip on the weapon trembling noticeably. "If you truly cherished me, you'd have handed over what belonged to me by right." Right then, it hit me that no words of mine could sway her. Avarice and bitterness had eroded her thoughts over years, maybe even longer, reshaping her into a stranger I scarcely knew. "Release Devon," I begged, now just steps from the veranda. "This doesn't involve him. It's solely between us." A flicker of uncertainty, maybe remorse, passed over Candace's expression. For an instant, it appeared she might heed my request. That's when Devon sprang into action. In a swift twist that startled us all, he sank his teeth into the arm, restraining him, and twisted away, tumbling from the porch. Chaos erupted in mere heartbeats. Candace cried out in agony, the pistol discharged, the bullet veering harmlessly upward as law enforcement surged forward from all sides. I dashed the final distance to the veranda, tuning out the cops' yells to stay back. My focus locked on Devon, curled beside the balustrade, quivering. I got to him just as the officers overpowered Candace, pinning her down and securing her wrists. She howled and thrashed, her face a mask of unrecognizable wrath. I enveloped Devon in the remnants of my strength, sensing his slight frame shuddering against me. He was unharmed. He was secure. "Grandma," he breathed, clutching tight. "You showed up. I'll always show up, sweetheart," I murmured, tears streaming unchecked. "Without fail." Peering past Devon's shoulder, my sight locked with Candace's while the police escorted her off. Briefly, mother and daughter confronted one another over the vast gulf that divided us now. No fury lingered in her eyes, just a hollow void. The daughter I'd raised, the woman I'd recognized, had vanished entirely, replaced by a hollow remnant. Then she vanished from view, ushered into the squad car. I turned my full attention to Devon, to the wonder of holding him protected in my embrace. The sun hung bright overhead, casting light on my grandson's face, streaked with tears. I brushed my fingers through his locks, in awe of his bravery. "How did you sense she intended that?" I inquired gently once we settled in the arriving ambulance for our exam. "How did you unravel her scheme?" Devon nibbled his lip, pondering. "I rise early every day, Grandma. Mom assumes I'm still asleep, but I really just lie there quietly, lost in thought." I grinned, caressing his cheek, so perceptive, so tuned to the world. "That day, I caught her voice on the call," he went on. Her tone was off, like anger bubbling under a calm front. I crept to the corridor and eavesdropped outside the study. The medic wrapped up Devon's health scan and stepped aside for our space, chatting with the cops instead. She mentioned the gas and U.S. dosing. Devon dropped to a hush, adding she craved Grandpa's wealth, fed up with the delay and planned to stage it as mishap. His gaze met mine, eyes bearing a wisdom beyond his years. I realized no one would credit me if I spoke up. Grown-ups rarely trust children on grave matters. That final remark shattered me inside. How often had he attempted to alert me earlier with tiny hints I'd brushed off as kids' fancy? "But I trusted you at the terminal," I whispered tenderly. A faint grin brightened his features. "Yeah, you did, when it counted most." I drew him close once more, overwhelmed with thanks for this young soul whose sharp insight had rescued us. The sergeant neared, his expression blending ease and worry. "You and Devon should head to the clinic for a thorough once-over," he suggested. "We can handle the full accounts later. No rush." I dipped my head, thankful for his tact. "Candace," I faltered, struggling to grasp what my child had turned into, what lies ahead for her. "She'll confront grave accusations," the sergeant assured, steadying his words. I kept my voice hushed so Devon wouldn't catch every word. Charges like attempted aggravated homicide, abducting a child, unlawful firearm ownership, and more. Backed by the partner's statement and the proof you gathered, the prosecution looks airtight. A deep sorrow washed over me. Not for the current Candace, the one who'd aimed a weapon at me and hidden behind her boy as cover, but for the young woman she'd once been, the child I'd nurtured with endless affection. Could I speak with her before they transport her? I asked, catching myself off guard. The sergeant paused, eyeing my composure. "You certain?" "Absolutely," I affirmed steadily. "I require that resolution." He inclined his head thoughtfully. "I'll arrange it, though it'll be short and monitored." I faced Devon, who was watching our exchange closely. "Honey, I have to chat with your mom briefly. Can you stay put with Mr. Harrison?" Devon wavered, a flicker of dread in his expression. "She won't harm you anymore." "No," I soothed him. "Officers are all around. We're secure at last." Wallace, who'd stayed unobtrusively near us throughout, moved closer. "We'll manage perfectly, kiddo. Your grandma's coming right back." Devon agreed hesitantly, allowing me to depart. The sergeant guided me to a squad car stationed under a tree's shadow. Candace sat in the rear, wrists bound, staring blankly ahead. As I neared, her focus shifted gradually to me. The rage had faded from her eyes, replaced by profound exhaustion and a fleeting hint of remorse. "May I have a word with her?" I inquired of the guarding officer. He assented, unlocking the door but staying alert at my side. "Candace," I uttered, my tone more resolute than anticipated. "Why?" She met my stare briefly before dropping it to the ground. "You'd never comprehend," she murmured. "Give it a try," I pressed. "It's for Devon's sake. I must grasp how you could scheme to end your son's life." A twitch of anguish distorted her features. It wasn't meant to." She faltered, as though grasping the madness of her words. "Initially, it targeted you, the policy payout, the property. I was sinking in bills, Mom, worse than you'd ever fathom. And Devon..." She gulped. "Marcus claimed we had to loop him in. That twin fatalities from a leak looked more convincing than a single one, and a solo death for you would have had cops zeroing in on me fast." Her words cracked. I pushed back, suggesting we ship him to some academy or similar, but Marcus pushed for total commitment. "And you went along," I stated, less a query than a bitter epiphany. Candace offered no reply. Her quiet spoke volumes, worse than any outright admission. "Do you grasp the gravity of your actions, of what nearly happened?" My voice quivered now with restrained fury. "Devon will mature aware that his mother schemed his murder for cash. What wound will that inflict?" Tears trickled down Candace's cheeks. I couldn't discern if it stemmed from true regret or mere sorrow for herself. "My mind wasn't right," she breathed. "The loans, the strain, it felt like my sole escape." "There's invariably an alternative," I countered. "You could have confided in me about the finances. We might have offloaded the home, tapped the insurance properly. I'd have supported you. You'd have dominated me. As usual, she snapped back, echoes of past resentment resurfacing. You'd have ruled every penny and timeline. I exhaled deeply, seeing the futility. The warped image Candace held of me, of us, was entrenched beyond reach. Maybe it had simmered there forever, unchecked while I thought our bond was strong. You'll require real aid, Candace, I concluded. Beyond attorneys, therapists too. Something shattered within you that wealth can't mend. She regarded me, her expression one of utter surrender. And as for Devin, he'll remain with me, I declared resolutely. I'll exhaust every option to guide him through this, to show him your choices don't shape his identity. Candace dipped her head gradually, as if resigned to it. You'll raise him well, she murmured gently, far superior to anything I managed. It marked the nearest she'd come to owning her guilt that afternoon. The officer signaled our session's end. I rose, an odd relief settling in, like a burden easing off my chest. Farewell, Candace, I said, giving one final glance to the stranger my girl had turned into. May you discover serenity eventually. I pivoted and headed to Devin and Wallace awaiting by the aid vehicle. I avoided glancing rearward as the cruiser pulled off, ferrying Candace toward courtrooms, verdicts, and hopefully healing. Devin dashed to me the moment I appeared, clinging to my legs. You all right, Grandma? I knelt, locking eyes with him. I am, darling. And you? He nodded solemnly. I'm grieving yet eased. Strange to hold both feelings together. No, my dear. I grinned, touched by his budding wisdom. The remarkable nature of this remarkable boy. That's entirely expected. In the ensuing days and weeks, we navigated the tangled mess of paperwork and heartache that came after the incident. We gave statements to law enforcement, attended initial court sessions, and met with specialists in child psychology for Devin. The press attempted to sensationalize our ordeal into a spectacle, yet we held on to a measure of seclusion, largely owing to the sergeant's efforts to shield us whenever he could. Candace faced official charges and remained in custody pending her trial. Her partner in crime, Marcus, struck a deal with prosecutors, offering evidence that further strengthened the prosecution's position. Early mental health assessments pointed to a profound personality issue, worsened by monetary woes and deep-seated grudges. Devin and I relocated briefly to Wallace's place while searching for a different home, one that promised a clean slate distant from the haunting shadows of our former dwelling. His counselor noted how impressively he was coping, given the ordeal he'd endured. His strength shone through, even on those evenings when he'd jolt awake in terror, tormented by vivid, bad dreams. During one such episode, as I soothed him following an especially harrowing nightmare, Devin posed the inevitable query I'd anticipated. "Grandma," he whispered in the shadowy bedroom, his tone fragile. "Why would Mom want to harm us? Didn't she care about us?" I perched beside him on the mattress, grappling for the perfect phrasing. How does one convey such intricate anguish to a child of 7? "Devin," I started gently, "your mom is unwell. Not in the way you'd catch a cold or feel queasy in your tummy. It's a condition that warps her thoughts and emotions. It causes her to perceive reality all twisted." He took it in quietly, his gaze catching the faint glow from the bedside lamp. "She cared for us, in her unique manner," I went on. "Yet that affliction led her to choices that no well person would entertain. Will she recover one day?" He inquired, his optimistic tone piercing my soul. "I'm not certain, dear one," I replied truthfully. "Certain folks with such conditions improve through care and therapy. Some, though, do not. But here's what I am sure of. You're secure at last, and my love for you surpasses everything else." Devin inclined his head, appearing to embrace my words for the moment. "I care for you too, Grandma," he murmured, wrapping his arms around me. "Thanks for trusting what I said." "I'll trust you forever," I vowed, pressing a kiss to his brow. "Forever." We lingered there, holding each other in the soft glow. Grandmother and grandson, our connection forged stronger by treachery and peril rather than shattered. Soon enough, Devin drifted off in my embrace, his breaths turning even and calm. I gazed at his peaceful features in slumber, awed by his bravery, his insight, his ability to offer affection amid it all. The evening Devin tugged my sleeve in that dimly lit airport garage, begging me to skip our return home. He didn't merely preserve our existence. He imparted the greatest insight I've ever gained. That profound insights often emerge from the tiniest utterances, and insight isn't reserved for the elderly. At 70 years old, I finally grasped the art of attentive listening, and because of it, I now get to witness my grandson's journey into adulthood, support his healing from the scars, and construct a fresh existence alongside him, where faith and affection can thrive once more. As I observed his restful expression, I silently committed to devoting my remaining years to celebrating the valor of that young soul who, through a mere appeal, "Grandma, trust me," had altered our world. The path forward stretched out lengthy and at times agonizing. More bad dreams awaited, tougher inquiries, additional sorrow. Yet there would arise chuckles, explorations, and mutual delight. And most vitally, an unshakable honesty between us, the sturdiest base for reconstructing our world. Dawn was breaking, casting initial beams of light past the window shades. Another morning, another chance. I tucked the covers snugly around Devin, then eased away without rousing him. In Wallace's compact kitchen, I brewed some coffee and settled at the counter, observing the urban sprawl stir to life beyond the glass. My mind wandered to the countless sunrises ahead, the endless moments Devin and I would share. I reflected on Candace too, isolated in confinement, facing the fallout of her actions. The hurt lingered. Likely, it always would. But emerging beside it was a budding optimism. Optimism that someday Devin might reflect and perceive not just the disloyalty that nearly ended us, but the instant he discovered his resolve and bravery. Optimism that jointly we could reshape that dreadful evening into the dawn of wonder rather than closure. For ultimately, that's the essence. Not the origins of tales, but our decisions on how to carry on. And ours, Devin's and mine, had scarcely begun its opening act. Reflecting on that evening now, I came to a profound realization. At times, the quietest whispers bear the mightiest revelations. For 7 decades, I'd assumed insight arrived solely through years. Yet my 7-year-old grandson showed me otherwise. It really showed me just how mistaken I had been. Trust isn't solely built on past experiences. It's rooted in affection and truly hearing each other out. I got hit with a tough wake-up call from life, yet it also handed me an opportunity to start over, to connect more profoundly, and to guard what's precious even more fiercely. That's why, whenever you're second-guessing a loved one, take a moment, tune in, and gaze right into their eyes. The real story could be right there, ready to be seen. If my tale resonates with you and you enjoyed it, drop a like on the video to let me know. I'm eager to see the crowd size. Tell me in the comments, what's your city and what's the time where you are as you hear this? If you want to back my path forward, a little contribution would mean a lot. Thanks so much for tuning in and giving me some of your valuable moments. For similar real-life tales, browse the rest of my channel's uploads and hit subscribe. Right now, 2 fresh stories are popping up on your screen. I bet you'll love them. Tap one and dive in today. With love,